Are we live? Good. Hello, everyone. Mark Astor, former Palm Beach County Assistant State Attorney and defense lawyer. These days, my wife and I are running a law firm with our entire team, about 15 of us, saving families whose loved ones are suffering from substance use, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery. Now, many of the times that we deal with a case, what we notice is there's a crossover between the work that we do and the criminal arena. And, obviously having spent, 2/3 of my career in the criminal arena on either side of the courtroom, I thought I'd talk to you about the Tiger Woods case. I've been hearing a lot online. I've been reading a lot online. And honestly, I think the Tiger's probably not getting a fair shake. Now, I will tell you, Tiger's being represented by Doug Duncan, who I've known since 1993. He was certainly, when I was a young prosecutor, he was one of the lawyers I looked up to, and he is just one of the best lawyers out there. So Tiger's going to get phenomenal representation. So I'm going to go through this with you. I am sure that whatever I see, Doug is going to see, and probably then some. But my initial observations are that this is not a good case for the state. Had this not happened in Martin County, if this wasn't Tiger Woods, if it wasn't Tiger Woods, who's obviously got a connection to the president, I have to wonder whether or not he would even have been arrested. And we'll see if the Martin County State Attorney's Office decides to charge him. I suspect that they will because of who he is. But honestly, I think there's very little, if any, evidence that he's actually guilty. And I'm going to walk you through that. So I think the first part of what we're going to do is I'm going to bring up the probable cause affidavit. This is public record. You can download it from the Martin County Clerk of Court's website just by doing a quick search. I'll walk you through it. There were some things that I thought were really interesting, certainly from Tiger's perspective. So let me bring that up for you now. And meanwhile, if you have any questions or comments, just post them. I've got Michael with me. He is my marketing and business development guru. And thank you, Michael, for showing me how to use this technology, because it's one of the things that us old lawyers are not real good at. So Michael will be watching. And if you have any questions, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. Okay, let me just bring this up. I think I have it here. Okay, Michael, can everybody see this now?
We can see it.
Great. Okay, so look, this is a probable cause affidavit. You'll see it says that right on the top, and you'll also see just at the very top is see where it says 26-961 CT. The CT stands for criminal traffic. 26 is obviously 2026, and 961 sounds like this is the 961st case they've filed in this particular division of the Martin County Clerk of Court's office. So this is just the basic generic stuff on the front page on the first page of the probable cause affidavit. Tells you what he's charged with. You'll see it's got his name, his local address, and just the basic stuff. And you'll see down here, it's supposed to be signed. You'll see here, officer at the very bottom, 2095. He must have been the arresting officer. And this is a sworn document. So this is not a police report. This is a probable cause affidavit. And that means that it's sworn to, it's under oath, and it needs to establish all of the critical elements of the DUI. And we're going to walk through some of the things that I think are highly relevant. So in this first paragraph here, it describes, the various parties to this. So, and I'll just read through this with you briefly. So there's a white Ford bearing Florida tag number, which has obviously been X'd out, was traveling northbound on South Beach Road. A black Land Rover, which is Tiger's car, was traveling directly behind V2. So it sounds like Tiger was right behind this guy. As V2 slowed down to make a right turn in a driveway, V1 proceeded to go into oncoming traffic, traveling over the double solid line. As V1 maneuvered around V2, it struck V2. So I think one of the things that we know, and it's been on TV all the time, is that apparently, I guess, Tiger struck this vehicle that was, carrying a trailer, and that caused Tiger's car to flip over. It says here, if you go down to the second paragraph, Woods did not report any injuries sustained from the collision. What we do know, if you know anything about Tiger, is that he's had lots and lots of surgeries, on various parts of his body. Apparently golf is is a contact sport, at least the way Tiger plays it. Driver of V2, identified as Jeremy T. Bullard, also did not report any injuries. So it doesn't sound like this was a high-speed collision, right? If you've ever been in an accident where you've been rear-ended like I have, it doesn't take a whole lot to, to injure yourself. So it doesn't sound like Tiger was driving so fast that anybody got injured. So it says here, upon arrival, and this is the language from says Officer Levanier. I think I pronounced the name right. So she says, upon arrival, I made contact with Deputy Brenneville. So the way this works is what'll happen is that obviously there'd probably been a report of an accident, and I don't have access to the 911 tape, which is whatever the initial call was that went into the sheriff's office. It sounds like somebody called in and reported an accident. So Deputy Brenneville sounds like he was one of the first deputies who would have been on scene to review the accident. Michael?
Hey, brother.
Oh, brother, I got to call you back. I'm sorry. Sorry, Michael. I thought it was you calling me. Let me X out of this. Sorry, folks. Work never seems to rest. So Deputy Brenneville would have been the first one on scene, probably to conduct the traffic crash investigation. And just so we're clear here, there's really two parts to this particular DUI investigation. There's the criminal traffic crash, the traffic crash investigation, and then there's the criminal investigation into DUI, right? The criminal charge. And when you have a traffic crash and a DUI, that brings in all kinds of different issues, right? We have things like accident report privilege, with the idea being that you can tell the officer about what happened in the accident without fear of them being used against you because it's privileged. Then we have what we call switching of the hats, right? And you'll see this in the report here, the probable cause affidavit, where the deputy says, I'm now conducting an investigation for DUI. In other words, this is now a criminal investigation. The traffic crash investigation is over. This is now a criminal investigation. And that's where things start to go downhill for Tiger. So it says here, upon arrival, I made contact with Deputy Brenneville. You'll see that. Michael, can you see my my cursor moving?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so it says here, upon arrival, this is where we are. I made contact with Deputy Brenneville. He advised me on the above details. Deputy Brenneville advised while speaking to Woods, he observed several signs of impairment and requested a DUI investigation. So, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, well, what did he actually observe? Because apparently at some point, Tiger gave a breath test, which was a 000, meaning there was no alcohol in his system. So what did he observe? It also says here, and I'll show this, Deputy Brenneville advised he had conducted and completed the traffic crash investigation. See crash report. Again, I don't have that, but it's going to be an entirely separate report that details the traffic crash DUI investigation. Okay, let's get to the next bit that's really relevant here that I want to go over with you. Okay, third line down. I observed Woods to be sweating profusely. Apparently, they put quite a bit of stock in trade on this. And I think that what they're trying to say is, well, he was under the influence of something. That's why he was sweating profusely. I'd beg to differ. I mean, this is Florida. It's warm out. Some of us run warmer than others. He'd also just been in a car accident, okay, where his vehicle had been flipped over. And I'm sure he was stressed out about what he had just experienced. I don't know if you've ever been pulled over for a ticket. I have. And in 30 plus years, I've had a lot of, obviously encounters on a professional level with law enforcement. And I can tell you, I still get nervous when the cops pull me over because I don't know who I'm going to deal with. 99 times out of 100, I'm dealing with a professional, someone who's polite and respectful. And of course, I'm polite and respectful in response. But once in a blue moon, I'll get pulled over by somebody who's really just not in a good mood and not having a good day. And that makes you sweat, right? You get nervous. And I'm sure that Tiger was nervous. And we also know, because it's been pretty well publicized, Tiger's had, traffic issues before. There was a prior DUI from 2017. I'm sure he knew what was coming down the pipe here. In any event, let's go over some of this stuff. And here we go. Here's the language. Here's where it talks about the switching of the hats. I was now conducting a criminal DUI investigation to ensure he was able to operate the motor vehicle in a safe manner at the time of the crash. It says here, I inquired about the collision, to which Wood said he was looking down at his cell phone and changing the radio station. So here's Tiger telling them, look, I was distracted and I just, I wasn't paying attention. How many of us have done that? I know I have. I'm frankly a little embarrassed to say I've done that, right? We've all been distracted by our phones, or we've seen somebody on the roads who either appeared to be intoxicated or was distracted, and then we drive past them and they're playing with their phone. So I actually think this helps Tiger. Now, clearly this is a criminal investigation, and had this been different language, if he'd have said something, well, I was chugging a beer and I wasn't paying attention and went into the back of this trailer, I think the state would have a problem. He's now in custody and he should have been Mirandized. But I actually think this statement helps him. Why? Here's his defense, right? This is going to come in. The state is going to have to introduce this statement if they decide to prosecute this case and it gets litigated. So what does that mean? It means that Tiger doesn't need to now take the stand and explain what happened. It's already here. Now, Tiger has a right to remain silent at trial, and the state's not allowed to comment on, his silence. It would be a mistrial if they did. So he's not going to need to testify, right? His defense is right here. I was looking down at my cell phone, changing a radio station, and we know from earlier on in the probable cause affidavit that apparently this guy slowed down and Tiger just didn't see it and probably tried to avoid him and clip the back of the trailer, at least one side, and that caused his car to flip. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit here, and I want to show you this bit, which I think helps. Yeah, okay, here we go. I observed him sweating profusely. Again, they're putting quite a lot of stock in trade on that. Wood's movements was lethargic and slow. Okay, I'm going to show you the video in a little bit, and I would beg to differ on that. Woods was extremely alert during the investigation. Well, was he slow and lethargic, or was he alert? I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too. At this time, I was unable to look at Wood's eyes due to him wearing sunglasses. I asked him if he would be willing to perform a few sobriety exercises to ensure he was able to operate the motor vehicle in a safe manner. Okay, let's stop there for a second. Okay, the roadside exercises are not designed to show that you are able to operate a motor vehicle in a safe manner. They are designed to enable law enforcement to collect evidence against you, which will later be used against you. Because, first of all, you have a right to refuse to do the roadside exercises. Right? Now, they won't tell you that. They're not going to tell you that. They're not legally required to tell you that. But what they will tell you, if you say, well, what happens if I don't do them, is they're going to say, well, then I'm going to need to base the decision as to whether or not to arrest you based on what I've seen so far. What does that mean? It means that even if Tiger had not done these exercises, he would have been arrested, almost certainly. And as you know, when I did a lot of defense work, we used to have a saying in the office, you can beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. So maybe there would have been no case to prosecute, but I'm pretty sure Tiger would have still been handcuffed and arrested and taken down to the county jail. I'll show you some of the roadsides rather than going through all of this stuff here. He says here, I asked Woods if he had consumed any type of alcoholic beverage to drink today, to which he stated none. Now, again, I think this statement helps Tiger. Had he said, I've had a couple of drinks, I think that almost certainly there would be a motion to suppress because he's in custody, he's not free to leave, and Miranda is required when you are being subjected to custodial investigation, right? Because they're going to use his words against him. It says here, I asked Woods if he had consumed any prescription medication, to which he said, I take a few. I think there's going to be a pretrial motion to exclude that. That statement, almost certainly, I would think that Doug Duncan's going to try and exclude. Woods advised he takes medication for high blood pressure, cholesterol, ibuprofen, and Vicodin. He does say he took prescription medication earlier in the day. I observed him to be extremely alert and talkative. Well, you remember early on in the probable cause affidavit, that's not what they were saying. So which is it? right? You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. If we scroll down, this talks about the horizontal gaze nystagmus. Why do I point that out? So out of all of the roadside exercises, this is the one that probably has the most science behind it. I also think it's the one that Doug will probably move to exclude. Why? Because unless you can have somebody who can come in and basically establish the scientific reliability of this, I think they're going to have a problem. At most, the state will probably be able to introduce the results, but they're not going to be able to explain it. Here's what's interesting about this. When I was a prosecutor, and they used to send us for a lot of training, and I also used to file these cases when I was a division chief. They taught us that if there was what they call nystagmus at maximum deviation, which means, and I'll show you the video where they have him follow the pen, but basically the deputy has him follow a pen. Maximum nystagmus is right out here or right out here. And what they're looking for is this involuntary bouncing, right? The eyeball starts to bounce right about here and right about here. And what they used to tell us was, if there's bouncing, which by the way, you won't know you're doing it, then it probably means the person has a breath or blood alcohol level of about 0.10 or more. The reason 0.10 is relevant because way back in the 90s when I was prosecutor, before they changed the law, you had to be below a 10 to be considered not impaired, right? Potentially not impaired. Now it's an 0.8, so they dropped it. So the 10 was the sort of the gold standard. Again, interestingly enough, if there's no alcohol in the system, why are they observing some nystagmus? And it says here, says no vertical nystagmus. Actually, this is good. No distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum and at the onset. So even through this, they didn't see anything, right? Potentially the most accurate of all of the tests. Okay, I'm going to show you the video of some of the roadside exercises. You'll see here confirmation, no alcohol in his system. Now, obviously, when they realized there was no alcohol in his system, because remember that they've already alleged that there were, quote, signs of impairment, despite the fact he was alert, cooperative, polite, and you'll see all that on the video. They asked him to take a test of his urine. So you'll see here, I read the Florida implied consent for the urine test. What is implied consent? So the implied consent law is when you get your driver's license, you signed the license, okay? And if you take a look at it, and you may not even have noticed it when you signed it, you agreed to submit to the tests, all of them, breath, blood, urine. That's why it's called implied consent, because you have impliedly consent. They probably should have called it express consent, because you've expressly consented by accepting the requirements of having a driver's license here in the state of Florida. So what they did was they would have read him implied consent. They would have warned him and said, if you don't take the test, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lose your driving privilege. So something to understand here. The officer is not just the officer is an agent of the state's criminal justice system, right? They're an agent of the state. The officer is also an agent of the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. So in addition to the traffic crash, the criminal investigation, there's also an administrative case that's going on. In other words, the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles has skin in the game here. And what happens is that when Tiger refused to give a sample of his urine, right, and the deputy gave him the warning, telling you right now, Tiger, I can't force you, but if you don't take it, you're getting your license suspended. What happened was it was the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles who has revoked Tiger's driving privilege for not submitting to the test. It has nothing to do with the criminal case. This is purely an administrative test, purely an administrative suspension, which, by the way, Tiger can challenge. And that would have a separate hearing in front of a hearing officer. I know this is why DUIs are very complicated to litigate, especially from a defense point of view, because you really have 3 cases all wrapped up in one. Okay. I want to pull up the video for you so you can see more of this stuff. Michael, how are we doing on time?
We are 20 minutes in.
Great. Okay. So let me just add this, and folks, bear with me while I get a handle on the technology here. Okay, is that now up, Michael? Or do I need to?
Yep. It's
Great.
up.
Okay, I'm going to play this for you. I'll try and walk you through it. It's not long. This actually was one of the local news stations that did this, and you'll tell me what you think.
Left.
The newly released video shows Tiger Woods performing a series of sobriety tests.
You understand?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the moment deputies handcuff him,
So at this time, you believe your normal faculties are impaired, okay, and you're under the unknown substance, okay? So at this time, you're under arrest for DUI.
So she already tells him you're under arrest for an unknown substance. They have no idea what he has in his system, if anything. Okay, let me just back up a tiny bit.
Yes, sir.
And I want to show you this one bit. Okay, this here, see where he's touching his nose? This is called the finger to nose test. And basically, it should be done while he's standing up. And they normally make you close your eyes, put your head back. Okay, and then they call out left, right, and you would be touching your nose. And of course, what they're looking for is to see if you can actually touch the actual tip of your nose, right, as opposed to the side or your lip or whatever it is. And can you do left and right as they want you to do it? And are you swaying? Okay. So I wanted to walk you through
Tiger Woods performing a series, and the moment deputies handcuff him.
So at this time, you believe your normal faculties are impaired, okay, and you're under the unknown substance, okay? So at this time, you're under arrest for DUI. Yes, sir.
Allegedly finding 2 opioid pills in his pocket.
Okay, let's take a second to talk about that. Because so once he's arrested, they're allowed to search him and his vehicle incident to arrest. Okay, and I know there has been a ton of talk about the fact, well, they found these two pills in his pocket, and they're trying to say, well, he had 2 pills in his pocket, he had a car accident, he's sweating profusely. Well, he must have been impaired. Okay, one of the perhaps the most important concept or concepts to understand, at least with regards to our criminal system, is that when somebody gets arrested, okay, they are presumed to be innocent. Okay, Tiger has a constitutional right to be presumed innocent, and only until the state proves each of the elements of the charge beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt does Tiger then become, quote, convicted. Okay, now the burden of proof lies with the state. Tiger doesn't have to do anything. Tiger could go to trial, and his lawyer, Doug Duncan, could sit there, and they could just sit there. They could sit there for the day or the 2 days this case is probably going to take to try, and read the newspaper and not say a word. No opening, no closing, no direct examination, no cross, zero. They don't have to do a thing, right? The state puts on their case, they rest, they do their closing argument, and the jury could still acquit him. The burden is with the state, and only the state, and it stays with the state in a case like this. So just understand that. Now, they found these pills in his pocket. I know it's very easy to jump to a conclusion and say, well, okay, he was obviously under the influence of pain medications. I think a couple of things might happen here. Number one, I would imagine that there's going to be a motion to exclude these things, right? Unless the state can connect the pills to the elements of the crime, in other words, the impairment, I don't see how this is coming in. I think it's way too prejudicial. I do not think this will be allowed in. And even if it is, Tiger has a rational explanation, right? I think in this video, as we play it, you'll see he tells him he has multiple injuries. He's even wearing, you can see in the video, he's got his right leg has a long sock on it. And I think his injuries are well documented. I mean, he's missed a lot of time from playing golf. So unless they can connect these things, I think they have a serious problem. So I think the pills are going to get excluded. They have no urine sample and they have no breath test. Where's the evidence here? They're saying he was sweating. I mean, you can see from the video, it's a warm day out. And he's just had an accident. And he's surrounded by law enforcement.
That's a narco.
It's narco?
Yeah. Okay.
Tonight, Florida's Martin County Sheriff releasing hours of footage from the star golfer's DUI arrest.
This is fun.
Here, he describes the moment he...
Okay, so you hear him talking. He says, well, this is fun. Does he sound like he's under the influence of something? I think not.
He hit a truck's trailer.
Looked down my phone, and all of a sudden, boom.
Okay, there's his defense. There's his defense. He tells him exactly what happened.
And there's an apparent phone call with President Trump.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, you got it. All right, thank you. Bye.
So, okay, they're saying he called the president. Okay, I don't know why, and I'm hoping that there's no political motivation here, because of his connection with President Trump. I think Tiger is dating Don Jr.'s ex-wife. I hope there's no political motivation. Again, I don't think this is going to come in. I think Doug's going to want to keep it out, because you don't know who the jury is and what their political affiliation is, and really it's just not a path that we want to go down.
Just keep you down here with us, please.
Yeah, I was just talking to the president.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, so when we're talking about impairment, with the jury instruction says it's impairment of normal faculties. What are normal faculties? Well, the ability to walk, talk, and do the things that, as human beings we do every day.
Yeah, I was just talking to the president.
Okay, does Tiger understand what the deputy is saying? I think that he does. Does he respond? Is his speech clear? Is he walking okay? For a guy that's had that many surgeries, does he look like there's a problem here? I think we all, have probably seen somebody that's probably had too much to drink or under the influence of something, and they don't look like Tiger.
In the videos, Woods has constant hiccups and repeatedly shakes his head. During those field sobriety tests, at times, he struggles with the deputy's instructions.
Try not to move your head, okay?
You have the hiccups.
Earlier, Woods' manager asked investigators for help retrieving the star golfer's clubs, including his priceless putter.
I've won 14 majors with it.
Are you golfing the Masters? Sure.
Hoping to. Depends on y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is very unprofessional, right? They've just arrested him, and now they're turning this into a social event, right? They're a little starstruck. Oh, let's talk about, how many Masters the Tigers won. I don't like this, okay? I really don't. I think it's unprofessional. You want to arrest him? Fine, do your job, but don't turn this into a social event.
Don't depend on me.
First responders later smashing his SUV's window to retrieve that putter. Woods' manager showing it off.
That's a piece of history right there, huh?
Once handcuffed in the back of a squad car, Woods yawns, closing his eyes. He's since pleaded.
Okay, why is that important? It's important because clearly Tiger was probably sleep deprived. He was certainly tired. Okay, so if he was distracted and tired, right, isn't that really what may well have happened here? And remember, it's the state that has the burden. Tiger doesn't have to prove anything. There is certainly a logical explanation for what caused this accident, and zero evidence that there was any substance in his system.
Pleaded not guilty and said he's stepping away for treatment.
All right, Jesse Kirsch joins us now live.
Okay. Let's just talk about the treatment aspect for a second. Look, if Tiger has a problem, I'm glad that he's dealing with it, because it's only going to get worse. That's what happens when you have a behavioral health issue. Let me just come back to here. Let's just jump out of this for a second. So I think it's good that Tiger is seeking help. I applaud him for that. But again, that has nothing to do with this criminal prosecution, and that is not going to come in. It's simply not relevant. So what do we have here? Well, I think the DUI case is shockingly bad. Again, I think that Martin County, the state attorney's office, is probably going to file this case. I will tell you, I review literally hundreds of cases. So what happens is the police will put together what they call like a filing packet, right? And it's the traffic crash report. It's the probable cause affidavit. It's the reports that would have been made by any other deputies that were on scene. It's the traffic citations. I believe he got one for careless and also was cited for the refusal to take the urine test. Okay, all of that gets presented to the state attorney's office along with any video. So I would imagine there's a video that was made at the Martin County Sheriff's Office where they asked him, will you submit to the urine test? And then they read him implied consent warning, telling him if you don't take it, we're suspending your license. And him saying, I'm not going to take the test, right? So you would get the filing packet, you'd probably get the video, perhaps certainly the roadside video. any video from the deputies that were on scene, and you review it. And I'm going to tell you, if I was reviewing this case, I'd either no file it, or I'd file it as a reckless driving, which is a sort of a way we used to file the cases. That wasn't enough for a DUI, but we had some evidence, okay? And it used to be back then that the defense lawyers would fight like cat and dog to get a reckless. So if I'm giving it to them, most of the time they'd take it. Again, I don't even know if a Tiger would take a reckless on this case. It's just, there's just very little, if any, evidence. And I know he's been portrayed as, under the influence of medications, and that caused the accident. I'd beg to differ. I think there's zero evidence of that. So maybe it's a reckless, because I think they will file something because it's Tiger. If there's anybody else, probably not going to get filed. There's the traffic ticket for careless driving, which will probably get resolved. And we also have the criminal case for refusal to sign. Again, that was one of the changes that was made, I think, after I left the state attorney's office in '99. Maybe somebody can clarify the date they changed the statute. But it used to be, if you refused, you only got the administrative suspension, which Tiger has right now. Now you have the administrative suspension, and it's also a first-degree misdemeanor, a crime in the state of Florida, to refuse to take the test. That's probably that will get filed, I would imagine, because, I mean, he refused. I don't think there's any dispute about that. Again, whether or not that can get knocked out of the box because the arrest was illegal, right? Again, we have Fourth Amendment issues of search and seizure, which I'm sure Doug will handle. Whether or not we can get that thing knocked out of the box, I don't know. I mean, I would imagine if the state attorney's office turns around and says, here's what's going to happen. We're not filing DUI. You take a plea to the refusal. And, on the careless driving, the traffic infraction, we take care of that too. He does, a year's probation with special conditions. I would imagine, that's a good resolution for everybody, right? Because that's pretty much where this case stands. So that's the Tiger Woods case. Unless somebody comes to us with different evidence, I think this is a poor case. But, the officers only have to establish probable cause. And when you refuse, when they see any indicia of impairment, or what they classify as any indicia of impairment, on those roadsides, then you're probably going to take the ride. And that's what happened to Tiger. So with that said, do we have any comments or questions?
We do. We got a couple. We'll knock them out.
Cool. Let's have a look here. I watched, okay, let me go through this. I watched the coverage on Fox News, and the videos from the arrest and the stop were alarming. Why do you think he did not decline? I'm going to tell you why nobody declines. Because law enforcement do not have to tell you that you have a right to refuse. Now, Tiger had been arrested in 2017. And so I'm a little surprised that he didn't say, maybe I shouldn't do this. I don't know why he submitted. That's something he'll be discussing with his attorney, but probably better that he didn't. But again, he doesn't look bad doing them. So in some ways, when your client looks good doing them, sometimes that's great evidence. I mean, a picture tells 1,000 words. And maybe they use this and say, look, really? Did he look that bad? Do you think he looked that bad? And by the way, these roadside exercises, it's like anything, these are physical tools, right? And like anything physical, the more you do it, the better you get, right? They make the officers do these. Actually, when the officers go through the DUI training, they make them drink to the point where they're intoxicated and then do the roadsides, and they have to practice on each other. And it's very interesting, right? And one of the things when I used to cross-examine the officers when I was doing defense work, because I get them to admit, the more you do these, the better you get. Well, probably Tiger, if he did them in 2017, and I don't know if he did or didn't, this is not something he would have done since. And by the way, these things where you see him flipping over his hands, those are different. Those are not the tests or tasks we used to use when I was prosecutor. I think partly because, those ones would have involved him standing on one leg and walking a line, which he couldn't do physically. So they had him leaning against the car and doing these things. I'm not sure how valid those are, but again, I don't think it hurts him. I think it helps him. So I think that's why he did them. Flipping of the hats, is that something that should be announced? Yes. And I think in the probable cause, I think the deputy did say that. Is that something that should be announced? Yes. The deputy would have said to Tiger, the traffic crash investigation is now over, and we are now conducting a criminal investigation into DUI. That's the way it's supposed to be. Is it always done that way? Is it always done correctly? No. I think they did okay with the switching of the hats. The issue is going to be is, you know, did they have enough to arrest him? Was there really probable cause to arrest him? It's a pretty low standard. You know, it's just an objective standard. Would a reasonable officer have determined that, you know, that this was an arrestable offense based on the facts before them? Again, I think he would have gone downtown either way. I just don't think it's a great case. Yep. What do you say to the people who says he's rich enough to just hire a driver? Yeah, I mean, not a bad idea, right? I mean, maybe Tiger has a little bit of a target on his back because of who he is. But yeah, probably not a bad idea. I would imagine after this, he's going to say, maybe I should get a driver. I think that's a good idea. I just cannot believe he didn't invoke his rights, refuse these tests, and immediately ask for his attorney. Yeah, so, you know, interestingly enough, here's the difference between, say, an ordinary traffic stop and something like this. So the Supreme Court has said years ago that when you get pulled over for a, quote, ordinary traffic stop, like you're speeding, for purposes of Miranda, you are not in custody because you are objectively free to leave. Now, I've never agreed with that ruling, but that's why when officers pull you over, if it's one of them, maybe two, they can start asking you questions like, where are you coming from? How much have you had to drink? Now, and because the Supreme Court says they're not in custody for purposes of Miranda, they don't have to tell you, by the way, you have a right to remain silent. Once in a blue moon, and I noticed this when I was doing defense work, I'd get a client who would say to the officer, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment and Sixth Amendment right to remain silent. And the officer would say, so you're not answering my questions. Correct. I'll give you my driver's license. I'll give you my name. I'll tell you where I live. But I'm not going to answer any other questions. I hope that's okay. You understand that, right? Now, arguably, when the deputy starts the criminal investigation to DUI, Tiger, in my opinion, is clearly not free to leave, not using any objective standard, right? And I think they probably should have Mirandized him. Is that going to be an issue? I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. I'm sure that, you know, but again, I've never seen an officer actually read Miranda in a case like this where there's an accident. Now, I'm sure Doug will say, well, look, this is not the same as an ordinary traffic stop. I mean, it's hard to tell, but it looks like there was multiple officers on the scene. No reasonable person would ever feel like they are free to leave in a situation like that. And I think had Tiger tried to leave, you know what would have happened. They would have taken him to the ground and he would have been handcuffed and restrained. So should he be Mirandized? Probably. I think that'll be something for the court to consider and maybe a pretrial motion to suppress. And yeah, had they Mirandized him, I'm sure he would have said, I'm not talking to you. Where's my attorney? So these are really interesting questions. Michael, do we have anything else? Or is that it?
No more questions, but you want to tell them about the article you have coming out?
Yes. So thank you for reminding me. So US Weekly reached out to us yesterday and said, hey, would you do an article talking about the Tiger Woods case? So we did an article. I think it'll be out probably sometime next week, talking about this case. And I'm sure that there's going to be more evidence coming out about what's going on with Tiger. You know, I've been watching some of the TMZ stuff and I'm a little concerned. Everybody seems very quick to want to convict him. Okay. Because they know who he is, but more importantly, because he has, you know, they found the pills on his pocket. And, you know, there's obviously a connection to President Trump, and there may be some political motivation here to want to convict him before he's ever, you know, stepped in a courtroom. So US Weekly, hopefully next week, we'll be talking more about Tiger Woods. And if more evidence comes out, I will be sure to post comments and a video. If you go on the YouTube channel, you'll see, I think there's about 920 videos. So we've put out a lot of content about the work we do. And I've been talking about some of these celebrity cases, not just Tiger, but there was 2 cases that I think were in federal court for young adults who were addicted to social media. And now it looks like the social media companies are going to be on the hook for big dollars. So lots of interesting stuff happening in the behavioral health space. Michael, is there anything else? Any other questions anybody else wants to go over?
Those are all. We got one comment here. Do you want to read that one?
Did I miss? Where is it?
You should see it right in the stream.
Is it the first one? As a golfer, I've always looked up to
Yep.
Tiger. That's the one?
Yep.
Yeah. I think we've all looked up to Tiger. I mean, I was never a big golf fan, but I will tell you, when he was playing, wasn't it fun to watch him? I personally don't watch golf anymore. I just don't find it quite as exciting. Yeah, like I said, I mean, he's clearly got a behavioral health issue, and I think the fact he's gone into treatment, I think he's acknowledged that. But that has no bearing on the potential criminal case. However, I do think if there's a plea arrangement or the case goes to trial and he loses, that might be irrelevant, right? Because I think the judge is going to want to hear that Tiger is taking responsibility for what happened. So just because he goes to trial doesn't mean he's not taking responsibility. He's got a constitutional right to have a trial and make the state prove their case. And he's got a right to have a jury trial too. So should he get convicted, right? Even if there's a negotiated settlement, the judge has the right to reject the settlement between, the Tiger and the state. The judge might say, okay, before I accept this plea or before I sentence you, Mr. Woods, do you have anything to tell me? And Tiger might tell him, I'm taking responsibility. I got a problem with pain pills, and I've been in treatment for the last 30 to 45 days, right? I spent a lot of money on treatment. I feel much better. I'm on the road to recovery, and I'm going to do what it takes to never have this happen again. That type of stuff. So it's not relevant for the conviction, but it certainly might be relevant for sentencing. And obviously for Tiger's well-being, right? We want to make sure he gets help, because otherwise he's just going to get worse. And God forbid he drives like this again and kills somebody, they're going to make an example out of him without doubt. And then he could go to prison for a long time. So I think we're all hoping for the best for Tiger.
That's it.
Okay. Folks, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Please check out some of the other content we have. If you have any comments or questions, post. I read all of them, and I try to respond within a day. So I appreciate you spending some time with us. I know Michael's going to help me organize some more of these. And in fact, if there's anything in particular you want me to do to talk about and do another live event on, post. I'd be happy to hear what you have to say. I enjoy interacting with people and giving them information they need. So take care, folks. Have a good weekend.